Greetings and welcome to another video. I've just finished reading another Star Trek book, and this one turned out to be absolutely fascinating. Definitely one of the more interesting Star Trek books I've been reading recently. And the book in question is Star Trek Traitor Wins. And yeah, on the headline it says at the top here, the incredible third book in the best-selling Lost Years series. What does that mean for people who may not be aware? In my previous Star Trek video, I talked about this book here by J.M. Dillard called The Lost Years, set immediately after the 5-year mission of the USS Enterprise, and follows Captain Kirk and his crew about their various reassignments after the Enterprise got decommissioned. This, however, is a sequel to this book, and Traitor Wins goes into more detail about the crew of the Enterprise and their various separate new assignments after the events of this book. And I found it really interesting. Absolutely really good book. With that in mind, and with everything I've just said, I'm going to read you the back of the book. It began with the Lost Years, the long-awaited story of what happened to Captain Kirk and the crew of the USS Enterprise when their original 5-year mission ended. Now it's more than 1 year later, and Kirk and his crew have settled into their new separate assignments. But when Sulu and Chekhov find themselves framed for murder and treason, the two officers are forced to go into hiding. Admiral Kirk and Uhura frantically search for evidence to prove Sulu and Chekhov innocent. They uncover a plot that threatens the very foundations of Starfleet. The web of the conspiracy is woven tighter as the real culprits and Federation agents close in on the fugitives. Unsure of whom to trust, and with time running out, the former USS Enterprise shipmates must once again rely on each other to find the truth and prevent the Federation from facing utter destruction. And like I said, the historians note this adventure takes place shortly after the end of the Enterprise's first 5-year mission, immediately following the events of chronicled in Lost Years. So, as we've just seen, this sequel takes place about a year after this book. And yeah, I found it absolutely a fun read. As we just talked about, it's centered on Chekhov and Sulu, with Uhura acting as the anchor point between both men. And each chapter is from different perspectives. It goes from Chekhov's point of view, and then over to Sulu's point of view, and back and forth, with Uhura acting as the anchor point between both men, starting with when the three of them met for dinner one evening, and along the way they happened to meet Dr. McCoy. And it's from that dinner meeting things really progress. And not only do we have Chekhov and Sulu having their own different encounters and different points of view in this conspiracy plot, but Uhura goes on to act as the anchor point to Admiral Kirk and various other characters from the Enterprise, from Scotty to some of the medical staff from the Enterprise, and various other characters, and how it all intertwines, and we see all these different points of view go from here to there and interconnect. I really enjoyed how that went. It was a really good pace, a really good structure, and there was a couple of points when a question was asked, who's to blame for all this? Who's at the centre of this conspiracy and why? And as those questions start getting asked, some potential answers uh, obviously come to your attention. Certain things start making a bit more sense. And yeah, at each point, every time I was reading this book, I found it really difficult to just put the book down. It was a constant page turner, to be honest. And there were a couple of characters, one in particular, when they were talking about this one character, you didn't think much of the guy at first, um, but there were, well, when you look back on it, there were a few potential warning signs. But as the story unfolds, and you start to reevaluate this one character, certain things start making sense. It becomes increasingly apparent that he, no one else could be the villain of this story, but the real question is why? Why is he doing this? And then when the plot thickens, and yeah, certain other things from a certain point of view start to make sense. It's hard to it's hard for me to explain without spoilers, and I don't want to do that. But how the ending came into play, how it all just eventually closed up, and certain things just glued together. It was done well, in my opinion. I liked it. I liked the way it all came up. And the conclusion, um, yeah, I liked the conclusion. Maybe I need to reread the book again after a while, especially certain sections, for certain little bits of information to really blossom to real relevance and importance they were meant to be. Um, but as it is, I really do recommend it. Pardon me. So, with all that being said, I have to recommend that if you're going to get one book, you're best getting both books. So yeah, if you've got Traitor Wins, get Lost Years. And if you've got Lost Years, get your hands on Traitor Wins. Because this Traitor Wins, as we've established, is a sequel to The Lost Years. And seeing how it all comes together, it's good. Now, something that I want to come back to. Yep. I've got 2 books in the Lost Years series, but it clearly says here in the headline that this is the 3rd book in the series. So, how does that pan out? Well, when I was looking on the internet and looking at eBay, I noticed someone was selling a box set of 4 books, and all of these books were paperback novels, and they were in a box set called The Lost Years. And it turns out this book and this book were part of this 4-book box set. So the question is, what are the other 2 books? At the moment, I don't know. Haven't got round to looking into that. So, what I can take from that is that there are at least 2 more books involved with the Lost Years series. I've just got to get my hands on those books and read them accordingly. Now, you can either track those 2 books down separately, or I can try and get my hands on this one little box set with all 4 books in one go. I'll have to see how that pans out when I'm next on eBay, and hopefully got some money to spare for that. But at the end of the day, completing the set is going to be something worth doing, basically. I'm going to enjoy doing that. And when I get my hands on these other 2 books, I'm going to enjoy reading through them and seeing what happens and how it goes. But we'll talk about that another time if I'm successful in getting those other 2 books and completing the series. In the meantime, as I said just now, I would very much recommend both these books. Definitely worth reading, and Traitor Wins is definitely one of the more interesting and intriguing and fun Star Trek books I've been reading recently. Definitely worth the effort. So yeah, on that note, it's time for me to finish this video. Thank you everyone for watching, I really do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, be safe, have a good evening, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.